Welcome to the study. This is Professor Hemlock here. Today I'm going to go over a little bit more in detail on how the Kyrian rotation functions and how to maximize every little ounce of DPS out of this build. We're going to first focus on raid single target situations. So one of the important things to realize here is how long all of your cooldowns are and how they line up properly, okay? So first off, AP has a 2-minute cooldown. Touch of the Magi has a 45-second cooldown along with Rune of Power, right? But Radiant Spark has a 30-second cooldown. So you essentially are going to be able to get in little mini burn phases in between actual functioning burn phases, okay? So say on the beginning of the pull, you are always going to open with trying to fish for a clear cast proc. So one of the important things to make sure you have available to you is maximum counts of mana buns. So in a raid situation, my opening pre-pull is going to look very similar to essentially Arcane Explosion, eat, Arcane Explosion, eat, Arcane Explosion, eat. So if I'm given a 10-second timer, at that 10-second timer, it's just going to be AE and eat. Awesome, I just got a clear cast proc off the first one. That's never going to happen again. Then I'm going to Frost Nova, and on pull, I'm going to counterspell the mob into using arcane missiles. Now, it will take 3 or 4 arcane missiles casts. 3 if you get 1 clear cast proc, 4 if you get 0 clear cast procs to get to 18 stacks. Now, you're pretty much going to get 1 clear cast, hopefully, when you fish for your clear cast procs. Now, say it doesn't go well in your opener and you don't get any clear cast procs. The big thing, you want to make sure that you go into the pull with near or close to maximum mana. So around 3 to 4 seconds, again, I'm essentially spamming Arcane Explosion, eat, Arcane Explosion, eat, Arcane Explosion, eat. And that's going to maximize that mana pool so you can go into the fight with maximum mana. Now, clear casting has a proc chance based off how much mana you spend. So Frost Nova has a chance to generate, as well as Counterspell has a chance to generate, since they both have associated mana costs. And that's why you're using those 2 abilities in addition to once you've gotten your first clear casting proc, because they do consume mana and they can generate clear casting but not cost your clear casting stack. Okay? So once you've got to 18 charges of your Harmony here, you then go into your big burst rotation off the bat. Big burst rotation is going to be, if you have an unused trinket like I do, so the Soul-Letting Ruby, you'll Radiant Spark the target, Touch of the Magi the target, and then AP on the target. Then you're going to do 5 Arcane Blasts into an Arcane Barrage. Now, as I mentioned in the previous Kyrian introduction video, you want to have a substantial amount of haste, enough to reach that 8 to 10% range. Why is because if you have that 8 to 10% range, you're going to be able to get in 5 blasts plus the Arcane Barrage into the Touch of the Magi window, and it's going to make your Touch of the Magi absolutely pop off. So that is super important. You do want to have this range of haste. If you're running extremely low values of haste, as you should be for most other arcane builds, then you'll want to only do 4 arcane blasts into a barrage. That is extremely low values, though, if you're talking like, less than 4% haste. But we're going to, say that we all have around that 8 to 10% range. Okay? So we've got our charges. We're then going to go Radiant Spark, Touch of the Magi, AP, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We Orb. Oh, we should get clear casting procs off of this, but we unfortunately did not get any clear casting procs. Then we're just going to build back up to 18. Once you get to 18, you're going to drop your rune, use your clear casting procs as you get them, and we're going to start spamming Blast. Now, Radiant Spark comes off cooldown. We use Radiant Spark, 5 Arcane Blasts, 3, 4, and 5. Look at the CD timing. We have Rune or Orb up again, and then we're doing the same thing. We're building back to 18. Now look at this. our Rune of Power and our Radiant Spark are going to line up perfectly. So during our down phase, between when these cooldowns are coming back up, what we're focusing on is getting to 18 and then dumping. All right, now right now here, our rune is coming up, so we're going to Rune, Spark, Touch of the Magi, and then, you guessed it, 5 blasts. And our 5th one. And then, what do you know? Orbs back up. And then we go to burn our Clearcast procs. We get up to 18. Now at this point, this is the perfect time right now where we have a little bit of downtime. So I'm going to burn all of my mana, Evocate. I'll get up to full mana again. Then I will Barrage. Orb. I'm going to get back up to 18 charges. And as you can kind of see here, I'm going to then be able to prepare for my next AP go, and then the cycle resets itself. I'll get up to 18 stacks. I'll use my unused trinket, Radiant Spark, Touch of the Magi, AP. And that is your raid single target DPS rotation. So the big thing to note here is how tight those CD windows are. It is very important to understand that because AP is on a 2-minute cooldown and Touch the Magi is on that 45-second cooldown, and you're cycling your cooldowns in a way where you're getting a little mini go with your Radiant Spark, it is very important to note just how tight those windows are. So you don't have but, 10-ish seconds between making everything perfect using all of those CDs on cycle. Making sure you're always using Orb to get up to 2 charges so you're not having to hard cast back from 0. Making sure you're evocating after that mini burn phase and you're burning out the rest of your mana. And making sure you're dumping when you have 18 Harmony stacks and you have 4 Arcane Blast charges. So those are the really big takeaways there. If, this is really of important note too, if you're in a raid fight and you have a mechanic occur, it is very important to still utilize those cooldowns. So if you do get a mechanic and you're only going to get a few uses out of one of those cooldowns, and the mechanic's going to take 5 to 10 seconds, maybe 15 seconds to fully complete the mechanic, we're thinking like, Artificer Zymox or something like that, where you get like a ghost attached to you, or you have to go run a seed, or if you get the Shriekwing mechanic where you've got to run out of the group, it's still important to use those cooldowns even though you may not get max benefit, because the issue is if you do not use those CDs at that very tight window, we've already talked about how tight that window is for cooldowns, then you're essentially not getting a use out at all. So it's better to have a shitty use of a cooldown than no use of a cooldown, okay? And that's a really important note. And this is going to kind of take some feel for the build. You're going to have to know how long mechanics take to do. You're going to have to know how tight those cooldown windows are. And once you get more practice with it, this is going to become more second nature. In the meantime, while you're practicing this build and you're getting better at perfecting it, just try and stick to the cooldown cycles mentioned previously here. Go back, watch this video like 2-3 times, practice on fights 2-3 times, go do Raid Finder, pug a heroic, or normal, wherever you're at in your play. Just practice the build and practice the rotation. It's super important that you get used to these tight CD windows and learn how to maximize those portions of the rotation. Now, just kind of going over a little bit more what my down phases are looking like, because we do have those gap phases where if you are able to sustain constant DPS, expanding upon those gap phases a little bit more, we're making sure we're always using Orb first after every single time we dump if it's available, and then we're going to always use our missiles procs. That way we have 2 charges, we're getting 2 Arcane Blasts that are higher, we're going to make sure we're at 18, and then we're just going to dump and reset. Then we'll go back into the missile spam, and then we'll have to, use our Orb again when it comes back up, and then we're going, of course, using any clear casting procs. We get to 18, we use Orb again, we blast twice, and then we can dump again. Now, you shouldn't have to do that so much. You should be able to do that, maybe 1 or 2 times in between massive go phases if you're able to sustain those constantly. So that is your little in-between down phase time, okay? So moving into Mythic Plus, it's going to be very, very similar. The only real difference is going to occur is that you most likely will not have that Radiant Spark intermittent use, okay? And you may weave in some Arcane Explosions. Arcane Explosion still does a fair amount of damage, and if it's more in your preparation phase, that's going to be something to consider. So same rotation is going to apply.
Charge complete.
Depending on how the pull is starting. So say it's like a Plaguefall. When I think of Plaguefall here, I think of that big opening pull where you're pulling the big dude on the left-hand side and the smaller pack on the right-hand side. What you're going to try and do pre-pull is you're going to pop mirror images to make sure you do not pull aggro off the tank. And then, of course, you can do your spam one, your Arcane Explosion to make sure you're getting your clear casting proc. And then you're just going to try and build up while the tank generates threat and groups the mobs into a tight pack. What you do not want to do is just start ripping as much damage as you can at the very beginning of those type of pulls. What you're going to do is you're going to pull aggro, and then you're either going to have to use a major defensive cooldown like Ice Block or Invis that you wouldn't have necessarily needed to use, and it's going to make the mobs spread out. So not only your future AoE damage may be reduced, but everyone else's in the group's damage is going to be reduced. So it is super important that you do give the tank 3 seconds. It's not a lot. Arcane does a lot of threat very rapidly, so you need to be a little bit more patient on those go phases. So pop mirror images on those major opening packs where you're pulling a lot of mobs at once to make sure not only you don't pull aggro, but your tank is going to have time to accommodate while you're building up your missile stacks. Then once you've got your missile stacks built, you're going to do the exact same rotation you would in Raid, assuming you have that similar haste figure that I have, that 9-10% range. You will be able to get 5 blasts into a barrage during the Touch of the Magi window. Of course, if you are someone that has lower haste values, then, as I mentioned in the previous video, you're going to go to 4 blasts and then a barrage. So, very important difference to note. If you don't have that haste value, make sure you're doing 4 into a barrage instead of 5 into a barrage. You want to maximize that Touch of the Magi damage on AoE packs. So, same thing, on-use Trinket, Radiant Spark, Touch of the Magi, AP, and then 5 blasts. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And you'll note how with my level of haste, I barely got that barrage in prior to it hit my Touch of the Magi exploding on the mob. And that was only because I was relatively close here. So distance to the target matters. The further you are away, the longer that barrage takes to do the impact damage. So you want to judge your haste compared to, like, obviously if I'm right next to the mob, there's not really any travel time, right? So I'm always going to be able to get that barrage in. That way I can always do 5 blasts into a barrage on my AoE packs. Now, directly after your Touch of the Magi has exploded, it's going to look exactly like that raid encounter where you orb. Now, at this point, you probably have some clear cast procs to burn. You burn your clear cast procs, and then hopefully your orb hits, 3-4 targets. So you have 4 charges, and you may have, anywhere between 9 and 12 harmony stacks. You then barrage the target again to dump them out. Depending on your situation here, if that's how you're going to proceed, okay? So typically at this point, if you used especially your big AP burn, that pack is annihilated. There is not much left on that pack. You're going to snipe the targets with the highest health that are left, and you're going to focus on using arcane missiles to build back up to 18. Essentially, the goal is to then go into the next pull with 18 stacks of harmony. You'll have your Radiant Spark off cooldown, your Rune will be off cooldown, and Touch of the Magi will be off cooldown. Then it's as simple as going into the pack, Rune, Spark, Touch. You already have your 18, and then you can simply do your 5 blasts into a barrage. Bada bing, bada boom. You then have a mini go cycle, and you're able to do substantial DPS on your off time, okay? And then, of course, the same thing's going to apply to that pack. It's orb, it's used those clear casting procs. I had 2 clear casting procs right there. If I wasn't, screwing around, we would have used those 2 clear casting procs. And then we would have had 4 charges, and we would have had a substantial amount of harmony stacks. Then we would have just dumped those stacks. And then we could have gone into either Arcane Explosion spamming. Every time we do our Arcane Explosion spamming, whenever we get a clear cast proc, we will use that clear casting proc for Arcane Missiles, of course. So if we did get a clear casting proc, we'd always use it for missiles. And then if the pack is still obviously has an exponentially large amount of health, or, there's not 1 or 2 targets left, you just dump and then repeat again, especially if you have your orb back up. You could go into repeating that process again. And then once your pack of mobs get to a low enough health percentage, you'll then start going into building with Arcane Missiles for the next pull. So that's kind of what I mean to my previous video when I was talking about effective DPS profile, right? Near the end of a pull, we're purposefully lowering our DPS to get our harmony stacks back up, to then go into the next pull and be able to really open heavy and do all of that pack's damage and hopefully kill a target very rapidly, or 2 or 3 targets very rapidly, and then repeat that cycle again and again and again. You may notice that you're casting Arcane Explosion extremely less compared to Night Fae builds or Necrolord builds, or really any other build as Kyrian, because you just don't need to as much. Utilizing your orb, utilize your clear cast procs for missiles, generating harmony, and then dumping and repeating, okay? And then with the short cooldown of Touch of the Magi and Radiant Spark, almost every single time you're pulling packs, you're going to be able to have those cooldowns available. And that is kind of how your DPS rotation is going to function in Mythic Plus. So really big things to take awareness of here are those cooldowns. You need to learn to maximize and take advantage of your cooldown cycles. So, of course, if there is one mob in an AoE pack that has like 80% health more than the other ones, and I'm in between packs, I may be able to get a Radiant Spark off before the next pack, and I still may have Touch of the Magi and Radiant Spark up for that next pack. One of the things with Kyrian is you have so much freedom of cooldown use because everything has a slightly different cooldown. You can kind of mix and match based on your situation. And that is something that a simple guide can't tell you. Your situation may be different at any given time. Your tank may pull 2 packs and you blow up on those 2 packs, but he's already pulling that next pack into your pack. So you're going to have Touch the Magi on cooldown, and you're not going to have the ability to do a burst damage window with Touch of the Magi. So then you've got to make the decision, okay, am I going to go in an Arcane Explosion or Orb? Especially in pug groups, this can happen frequently, and that's why Kyrian really excels in a coordinated group, pulling packs in a coordinated manner. It'll simply make your cooldowns sync up better. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. And of course, if you have any questions, you know where to go. Comments down below. I'll be able to answer any questions you may have and help you out with figuring the Kyrian build. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone next time. Thank you for joining me in the study. We'll see you later.